Thank you. Okay, hello. My name is Synne Skjulstad. I come from Westerdals, Oslo School of Arts, Communication and Technology. And I will speak about museums as myth in contemporary fashion branding. So, concepts of museum tend to appear frequently in luxury fashion retail concepts and spaces. And art museums also exhibit fashion. And there is also, as a context, a growing attention to the combinations of art and fashions, which is where the museum comes in this case. So this presentation is part of a research project called Brando. It's branding and advertising in digital domains. It is a research project that is based in the humanities. And it is a socio-cultural approach to multimodal communication design. And the project is drawing also on social semiotics, consumer culture, fashion studies, museum studies, and retail design. And it's a project that is very much focusing on multimodal textual outputs of communication. So it's a textual study. When I say textual, I have a very open view on what can be considered text or discourse, if you will. And my paper is also about the roles of museum myths in luxury fashion branding, as well as the relation between luxury fashion brands and museums, which is like an extremely big area. So I will, of course, not be able to explore this fully. But just to give you some sense of the role and relevance of the combinations of art and fashion and museums, I will just show you two quick pictures. I don't know if any of you recognize this building. It's drawn by Star architect Frank Gehry. And it's a newly opened museum located just outside of Paris in Bois de Boulogne. And the museum is owned by Louis Vuitton, or the group, that luxury group that also owns Louis Vuitton. Just to give you some sense about sort of the scale of this. This is not just sort of a small niche project. This is chairman of Louis Vuitton, François Arnault, and this is Frank Gehry, and this is François Hollande. So it's kind of, I think this picture is really nice, showing some of the power games going on here also. It's like you have Frank Gehry on the one side, and you have Hollande there, and he in the middle. So just to give you an example of this connection is not only like small one. So I have drawn on the concept of myth or mythologies from Roland Barthes. I always hate to pronounce his name because I don't know how to say it. But his study from 1957, where he investigated mythologies in French culture, in popular culture and media culture. And to say something about what how he understood mythologies, and that is how socially constructed narratives and assumptions and mediated phenomena tend to become naturalized. And sort of the myth of museum as being naturalized and sort of bleeding into luxury fashion branding is one of my interests. And I'm not focusing that much on how particular museums are appearing in fashion brands, but the sort of museum myth. And for fashion brands being, fashion exhibitions may be regarded as a vehicle for breathing new life into museums and as aiding their entry onto the superhighway of media, spectacle, and celebrity culture, according to Church Gibson. As well, and for fashion brands being represented in art museums, that may be said to add cultural credibility. So this is a two-way exchange. exchange. As Taylor and Church Gibson, two fashion scholars, they describe this as a two-way bridge between high and popular culture, so that museums and fashion are sort of regarded as to represent two different places at the same time, and being able to go across these. Fashion exhibitions have been surrounded by a great amount of controversy. I don't have the time to go into that more specifically, but there was quite a bit of controversy regarding a retrospective show at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where there was an exhibition of Yves Saint Laurent while the designer was still alive, resulting in a policy from the Metropolitan Museum not to mount retrospective shows of living designers. There was also quite a lot of controversy regarding an Armani retrospective at the Guggenheim in New York, just shown here, where the museum was accused of being sort of just a display window, just a shopping window for Armani, and there was a lot of rumors about Armani having just bought their way into the museum. So this whole area of controversy, I mean, that could be a paper or a book in itself regarding fashion exhibitions. So just to say that there's a lot of debate around fashion exhibitions per se. But my main focus, took some time to get there, but is multimodal articulations of museum myth in brand communication. And in particular, I'm interested in the collaboration between the Italian fashion brand Prada and the architectural offices called UMA and their counterpart, AMO. OMA stands for Office for Metropolitan Architecture, and is a company that is led by a very profiled architect and theorist, Rem Koolhaas. And this collaboration has been going on for approximately 15 years. It's a rich collaboration. So I just mentioned just a few of their explorations into actually debating museums. And I find it particularly interesting because it's not just about showcasing Prada the same way as the Armani exhibition was done at the Guggenheim. But I find it interesting because it's done in a very sophisticated way. When a fashion brand suddenly go into debating what museums do and should do, and they do it by way of artistic exploration. So it's sort of this area that my main interest in now. So one example that was carried out in 2012 was a collaboration between OMA and Prada and the artist, the Italian artist Francesco Vezzoli. And the project was called 24-Hour Museums, and it took place in Palais de l'Éna in Paris. Just to show a few images of this project. In this project, this is a website, by the way, so you can go and look at it. Here's another picture. What they did was to construct this 24-hour museum that was installed into the space of this building. And looking at the artistic practice of Francesco Vezzoli, you can see that his work is actually debating celebrity culture, museums, and sort of the mix between Hollywood movies, celebrities, artworks, institutions, etc. So what this project did was to place a branding event for Prada into an artificial museum that was a piece of art as an event. So it's kind of a complex work in many ways, because it cannot be sort of dismissed just as a branding effort. It cannot be sort of dismissed as not having to do anything with museums, and it may be read as an artwork that also criticizes some of the celebrity spectacle. So it's a very interesting case, I think. And going back to Barthes, yes. He wrote that the fundamental character of the mythical concept is to be appropriated, and that is one of the things that Prada is doing, but doing it well in many ways. I would just like also to show some of the projects they have been doing, where endorsement by association is a key principle in many ways. This shows a book that was published by Prada and that was edited by Rem Koolhaas. And this shows how the flagship store, or epicenter as they call these stores, these big flagship stores, they opened, this building is in Soho in New York, and it was built on the premises that used to be the Soho Guggenheim branch. And they were also playing and planning to sort of merge Prada and the Guggenheim, to sort of be part of the art world, which didn't happen, but the building is on the site where the Guggenheim used to be. So there's this symbolic value just in the site. So this is how the building looks as it is built, and I think it looks almost more like a museum than a clothing store. And it's also made room for cultural events that can take place within the building. It's like the more shop-like places in this building is in the lower floors, so you don't see it when you enter. Well, this is a picture from another architectural project that took place also with OMA and Prada, where they had built this flexible structure, this flexible architectonic structure that was placed in Seoul, in Korea, where they also exhibited many of the skirt designs that Prada have done. So they actually made an exhibition where they exhibited the clothing. And I have no idea of the time. How am I doing?
3 minutes.
Okay. So they also what they also can do is to consider their past collections as an archive. Just show you from the website. This was a pop-up shop installed at Harrods. It's a shop that is only there for a restricted amount of time and then disappears. I'll just read. Prada Sphere is a collection of archival objects arranged to reveal the complex obsessions of one of the world's most influential brands. From across diverse fields of creative and cultural activity emerged core ideas, beauty, taste, embellishment, gender, vanity, and power that are repeatedly interrogated. At once an aesthetic journey and a type of critique enacted through everyday objects. Prada Sphere is also a celebration of exquisite craftsmanship, paean to the rare, and a wholehearted endorsement of the stylistic iconic past. So this is how they present a shop that is only temporary. And it looked like this. You have these glass display cases. It's not easy to see here, but there are videos from all catwalk shows dating back many years back. And they also treat the original Fratelli Prada shop that is in Milan. These cases are replicas of the original glass display cases from the original shop in Milan, which also acts sort of like museum-like aesthetic, which also is visible in some of the objects exhibited. So just looking at this store for like in a quick glance, it would read, maybe not this picture, but it would read more as a museum space than a clothing shop.
Can you buy something?
Yeah, you can buy something.
So it is actually commercial.
Yes.
Costs as much.
And I think it's interesting that Rem Koolhaas, architect of OMA, he says in his conceptualization of luxury in sort of a time of economic growth, is when he was trying to find out how to stay competitive and how to sort of remain interesting in this field. He says that in a world where everything is shopping and shopping is everywhere, the ultimate luxury is not to be shopping. And it goes on, the museum, he says, and he conceives of the museum as the absence of shopping and of the active associated decision making. And in Koolhaas's sense, the museum becomes a medium and a multimodal interface, a site for the multivalent expression and exhibition of the brand. So the shop turns into more or less a multimodal museum of brand exhibition, which is an interesting tendency, I think. And what also happened, which I think is enormously interesting, is that there was a show in 2012, also at the Metropolitan Museum, where Impossible Conversations, the show that was sort of that were contrasting and discussing Schiaparelli and Prada's work. They lived like approximately 100 years apart. They never met, and where Schiaparelli's work was compared and contrasted to Prada's work, especially for those particularly interested, with a focus on Prada has a focus from the waist down, while Schiaparelli had a focus from the waist up, and they sort of contrasted these two designers. Most interestingly, the exhibition was centered around a video piece where interviews of Miuccia Prada was spliced and put together with a fictive interview of Schiaparelli, which is played by actress Julie Davis here, and that was directed by Baz Luhrmann, the director. And what happened was that, as the exhibition was not designed as the spectacular department store window, this did perhaps disarm critics. However, as the exhibition does not only exhibit Prada's designs, but the very essence of the brand, which is in many ways related to the woman and the designer Miuccia Prada's person, and like her preferences and her aesthetic sensibilities, and her being sort of projected as an intellectual person within fashion business. So, like, she has a PhD in political science, for instance, and the branding of Prada is very much focused on her as an individual. So, but what happened was that the very essence of the brand was actually exhibited at the Met. And just to quickly give some reference to this totally different exhibition taking place in 2011 in the same museum, was a retrospective by Alexander McQueen. But this was more of a mourning, a site of mourning and remembrance and a celebration of the designer, which took his life in 2010. And it was centered much around the myth of McQueen as an artist, an exhibition as a memorial of a past genius, and not as a display of the brand. And it was not criticized much for being such a blunt brand display. Yeah, I'll just skip this one. So, just to go to the ending, Fiona Anderson, she argues importantly that fashion is not only about garments, but about its associated imagery. So, sort of looking back, seeing all the controversy that was put forward towards the exhibition of Giorgio Armani at the Guggenheim, but not towards the Impossible Conversations exhibition at the Metropolitan, where the actual essence of the brand Prada is exhibited. It makes me wonder what happens when fashion branding really goes into museology and doing it well. So when museums may start acting as fashion media and now exhibiting brands, fashion brands, they start to appear and to go into museal practices. So you have this very interesting conflation taking place. Well, that was it.